They say money is power, but in Ekoi, power is a man named Kolapo Adegoke. A man who signs ministerial appointments over brandy. A man who buries secrets with the same hands he uses to cut donation ribbons. And the woman by his side, she is Adaeze, the polished, obedient wife. To the world, she is blessed. But to those who see clearly, she is a prisoner in silk. Last week, she was supposed to die. He planned it beautifully. A grand gala night, complete with flashing cameras and politicians in lace. Earlier that day, he had handed a vial of cyanide to a waiter loyal to his whispers, a man trained to obey without question. The waiter did as instructed, placing one of the fruit juices on the serving tray. Kolapo's plan was simple. At the peak of the celebration, he would hand the poisoned glass directly to his wife in front of everyone. It would look like love. It would feel like a toast. It would be murder by applause. But fate had other plans. As the gala peaked and Kolapo was unexpectedly called on stage to deliver a speech, the poison tray still hovered nearby. Adaeze spotted the glass meant for her. She recognized it instantly. As Kolapo turned his back, distracted by applause and cameras, she swiftly changed the poison drink with another. Her hands were steady, her heart was not. And in that split second, death changed its target. Ronke, Kolapo's only blood sister, approached, unaware, smiling as she lifted the glass meant for Adaeze. She did not hesitate. She did not know. She sipped joyfully even as the poison crept through her veins. The drink her own brother had prepared for his wife had instead reached his own blood. Not divine intervention, not coincidence, just the hand of a woman tired of being haunted. Now, his own sister is in coma. The country is shaking. The press calls it a medical accident. The politicians whisper. But inside the Adegoke mansion, the real story is leaking through blood and diamonds. The media doesn't know half of it. They don't know about the maid who disappeared, the dead inspector, the blackmail files, the fear, the bruises, or even the humiliation. This is not just a story about a failed marriage. It's about how wealth protects monsters, how silence kills, and how a woman born in Ibadan, raised by a struggling mother, fought back quietly, smartly, and with enough fire to burn a dynasty to the ground. This story is not safe. It is not gentle. It will disturb you, and it should. If this story inspired you, please help us grow this channel by sharing this video, giving it a thumbs up, and leaving a comment below. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button so more people can discover powerful stories like this one. To grasp Adaeze's courage, one must return to dust-swelled streets of Orita-Merin, Ibadan, where she once hawked roasted maize after school. She was 12 when her father's lung collapsed in a sawmill accident, leaving her mother, Mama Nena, to stretch beans and broken dreams into substance. Ada's currency was diligence, straight A report cards by lantern lights, state scholarship, a first-class degree in accounting that led to Lagos internships. The Lagos internship led to Kolapo. He arrived at the university's alumni lecture in a bulletproof SUV, philanthropy on his tongue, wickedness, harnessed behind heritage smile. At 26, Adaeze relieved flattery from the elite, signaled destiny's favor. By 27, she wore a diamond that blinded neighbors. By 28, she learned that diamonds can be colors. In the Adegoke villa, dubbed Echo Valley by lifestyle magazines, CCTV replaced conversations. Her phone calls were recorded, her wardrobe monitored, her bank cards double-signed by Kolapo's chief of staff. Twice she tried to visit her mother without approval, and twice Kolapo's bodyguards redirected her with apologetic grins. The third time, he slapped her, not hard, but contemptuously, like flickering dust from an expensive loafer. He apologized the next morning with a pearl necklace, heavy enough to choke a pigeon. She won neither apology nor the pearls. Instead, she slipped into reflective compliance, the way one eases barefoot across burning sand. Step, flinch, step, until the skin toughens or fire fades. But Adaeze's fire never faded. It banked and waited. Every tyranny misjudges its servants. Ifunanya, a dismissed housemaid, still kept a spare gate key. Insurance earned from years of forgotten wages. One rain-slicked dawn, Adaeze found her outside the servants' quarters trembling. Ife's voice cracked. "Madam, there is something I must tell you. The chief. The accident 5 years ago. It was not an accident." She spoke of a safety inspector whose brakes failed after threatening to expose Adegoke Industries, illegal waste dumping. Inspectors rarely drive into oncoming tankers by chance. The hush money had bought Ife's silence, but guilt gushed through cracks. Adaeze listened to the story, treading into patterns of cruelty she knew too well. She paid Ife's bus fare home and copied a dashcam file the maid had hidden. Data now resting on an encrypted flash drive under Adaeze's vanity. Kolapo's birthday gala was less celebration than victory lap. Governors, oil magnates, Nollywood starlets, they orbited his charisma like moths patrolling a bonfire. Adaeze's gown, emerald silk, traced her collarbones like jungle vines. Only Ronke noticed the tightness in her sister-in-law's smile. Ronke had always distrusted her brother's possessiveness, yet family loyalty, river deep and ancient, demanded silence. It was Ronke, ironically, who recommended cyanide, a brisk chemical she used in microdoses while studying veterinary medicine abroad. She once joked, "Kolapo, if you must kill pests, choose a poison that leaves no trace." He remembered. Adaeze remembered too. Remembered Ronke's guilt cruelty when servants spilled wine, but Ronke was a lesser evil. Kolapo was the architect. Tonight, Adaeze didn't care which branch of the tree snapped first, as long as the trunk cracked soon after. Dinner reached its crescendo when the master of ceremonies invited Kolapo to toast. The woman who proves our chief's discernment extends beyond boardrooms. Cameras panned. The band hushed. Kolapo rose and lifted his glass. Adaeze rose too, the venomous flutes glinting under chandeliers, their eyes locked. She drifted the rim across her lower lip, stalling, then leaned toward him, offering a mischievous clink. As applause erupted, Kolapo nodded to Ronke, signaling her to stand beside them, a united Adegoke, tableau for reporters. In that swell of movements, Adaeze executed the switch. It was artless yet invincible. Her left thumb pressed Kolapo's fingerprints, smeared stem. Her right index hooked the safe flute, a pivot, smile, pivot. Ronke, flushed with champagne, accepted the proffered glass, thinking it symbolized sisterly reconciliation. Seconds later, bitter almonds invaded Ronke's throat. She collapsed, overturned the waiter's tray and convulsed. The hall fractured into shouts. Kolapo bellowed for medics. Amidst the chaos, Adaeze screamed too. Pitch perfect horror, yet her pulse pounded with triumph. This is how legends begin, she thought. Not with thunder, but with a whisper of almond on the tongue. Ronke survived, barely, thanks to an ICU cyanide antidote kit kept for VIP emergencies. While doctors fought for her life, detectives took statements. Kolapo was livid and demanded private security handle the matter, but Lagos Police Crimes Division had jurisdiction once hospital toxicology reports flagged deliberate poisoning. Detective Olayemi Adekunle smelled something rancid beneath the Adegoke perfume. He subpoenaed CCTV footage from that single toast and noted Adaeze's slight handoff. He also found, curiously, that the security team withheld 2 minutes of the corridor footage after the toast. Minutes where Kolapo vanished into his study. That same night, Adaeze retrieved the flash drive beneath her vanity, texted Ifunanya a single word, now, and boarded a ride hail to the Central Police HQ. In a grey interrogation room, she laid out Kolapo's waste-dumping crimes, the brake tampering incidents, audio recordings of threatening calls. Inspector Adekunle listened. By dawn, he had a dossier fat enough to choke a goat and a reluctant witness brave enough to sign. The case moved from domestic tragedy to organized criminal indictment. Kolapo underestimated two forces, a survivor's patience and his sister's rage. When Ronke awoke, tubes lining her nostrils, the first face she saw was Adaeze. Tears streaked, yet unsurrendered. Why? Ronke croaked. Adaeze leaned close and whispered blunt truth. Because Kolapo chose which of us would die. This time, I chose differently. She placed Ife's dash cam stills on the bedside table, images of Kolapo swapping barrels of acid-laced runoff into the lagoon, the inspector's mangled sedan, Ronke's tears blood, twin parts. Vengeance shifted direction. She agreed to testify. Detective Adekunle planned the arrest for the Adegoke Foundation's annual business and cultural gala. 6 weeks away, when Kolapo would be most exposed, Adaeze's role, attend, appear reconciled and feed real-time intel via a concealed mic. Risks dripped from every second, but exposure in public will neutralize Kolapo's private militias. In secret, Adaeze rehearsed her exit. Passports, under alias, safe house for Mama Nena, non-profit charter papers for Rise Beyond Shelter, and NGO, still skeletal but pulsing with possibility. The Adegoke Foundation Gala was always an ego parade, held annually in the heart of Victoria Island. It was a theater of curated glamour, where power shook hands with corruption under the guise of philanthropy. Politicians arrived with their wives who knew not to speak too much. Businessmen came with mistresses, styled like diplomats, and the press, they came hungry for headlines, but always left with crumbs until this year. Because this year, the prey set a trap. Adaeze arrived in a fitted black gown, the color of mourning and war. Not a single piece of jewelry adorned her neck, no earrings, no purse. Her statement was silence. Her weapon, a tiny microphone stitched into the lining of her dress, and a piercing clarity in her eyes. Across the ballroom, Kolapo walked the crowd, smiling with teeth honed for headlines. He had no idea his empire was already bleeding from 1,000 paper cuts, each one itched by his wife, his sister, and a former maid no one thought mattered. Detective Olayemi Adekunle sat in an unmarked SUV 3 streets away, eyes glued to a secure video feed. His team had orders to wait for one word, confirm. When Adaeze would say it, they would storm the event with arrest warrants in hand, signed by the Chief Judge of Lagos himself. The charges: environmental terrorism, conspiracy to commit murder, tampering with public safety and infrastructure, and aggravated spousal abuse. He didn't care about the tabloid angle. He cared that 3 separate autopsies had been falsified over the past 5 years, all pointing back to Kolapo's business interests. This wasn't just a domestic case anymore. This was systematic rot, wrapped in gold leaf. Ronke, still frail but defiant, made her entrance. Just as the keynote speech began, gasps followed. Whispers pierced the velvet air. Everyone thought she was recovering overseas. The media had been fed lies about a rare allergic reaction. She wore navy blue and no makeup. Her face bore the subtle tremor of someone who had once tasted death and come back thirsty for justice. Kolapo saw her and froze, but only for a moment. He smiled, walked toward her and said, "Sister, what a surprise." Ronke held his hand tightly, too tightly. "Yes, brother. Surprises are the flavor of the year, aren't they?" Photographers clicked away. The headlines practically wrote themselves as Adaeze stood beside the governor's wife, smiling faintly for the cameras. Her mind replayed every moment that led to this night. the slap that landed without warning when she asked to attend a childhood friend's funeral, the sterile IVF treatment she was forced into without consultation, the time Kolapo ordered her food for an entire month so she wouldn't make weight-gaining mistakes. She remembered nights crying silently into hotel pillowcases while the city buzzed below. She remembered deleting texts after text that started with "I can't take this anymore." But mostly, she remembered Mama Nena saying, "My daughter, if a lion chases you into the bush, don't run in circles. Climb, hide, and wait. And when the lion turns its back, drive your knife between its shoulders." Kolapo took the stage. Lights dimmed, the string cattered hoarse. "My friends," he began, "we gathered tonight not just to celebrate success, but to remember legacy. And if legacy means anything, it must mean loyalty, vision, and family." Adaeze looked at Ronke. Ronke nodded once. Adaeze whispered into her hidden mic, "Confirm." Across the street, Olayemi's radio crackled, "Move." SWAT officers burst into motion. The ballroom doors flew open. Guests screamed. Security guards reached for weapons, only to freeze at the sight of federal agents. Kolapo tried to run. They tackled him mid-step, smashing his face into the polished marble floor. His Rolex broke. His glasses flew off, and for the first time in public memory, Chief Kolapo Adebuke looked human. Shocked and screaming, "Do you know who I am?" Yes, everyone did now. TV stations ran the footage on loop. Anonymous staff leaked internal memos. Victims of Adegoke Industries' illegal waste dumping came forward. Several high-ranking officials resigned, and Adaeze, she vanished for 2 weeks. When she reappeared, it wasn't as a wife or widow. It was as a founder of Rise Beyond, Nigeria's fastest-growing NGO for women escaping high-profile abuse. Ronke became its first board member. Ifunanya became its head of survivor intake, and this very story was adapted into a short film that made its way into international film festivals. But more importantly, it made its way into homes, into WhatsApp groups, into the ears of women who thought no one would ever believe them. Adaeze spoke at UN Women's Summit the following year. Her closing line, "They built a palace around my silence. I burned it down with truth." If this story inspired you, please help us grow this channel by sharing this video, giving it a thumbs up, and leaving a comment below. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button so more people can discover powerful stories like this one. They expected Adaeze to hide. Society expected her to crumble, to retreat quietly into a suburban shell, whispering apologies for her bravery, collecting pity like charity, smiling through shame. But instead of shame, she wore power. Instead of hiding, she stood taller. And instead of silence, she spoke so loudly the city could not unhear her. She didn't wait for the headlines to fade. Within days of Kolapo's arrest, she called a press conference, not from a luxury hotel, but from a reclaimed community center in Ajegunle. She stood on a bare concrete floor in flat shoes and a plain Ankara blouse. Behind her, on a repurposed chalkboard, were the words, "Rise Beyond," for every woman who's been told to sit down. There were no champagne flutes, no chandeliers, but every reporter that came left with their hands shaking, because Adaeze didn't tell the story of Kolapo the tycoon. She told the story of Kolapo the tyrant, the story of bruises hidden under imported lace, of gaslight disguised as gifts, of maids who disappeared, of poison served with polished smiles. And then she said, "If it can happen to me, it's already happening to women with no money, no camera, and no safe place to speak." That single line went viral. Kolapo's lawyers launched a media counterattack. They painted Adaeze as unstable, manipulative, and even criminal. They claimed she poisoned Ronke in a jealous rage. They floated theories about fabricated evidence. But what they didn't count on was how many people already believed her, because they saw themselves in her story. When video evidence surfaced of Kolapo slapping a security guard at the estate gate, the public turned. When Ifunanya released a handwritten journal Detailing years of staff abuse and hush money payments, the court of public opinion locked its verdict. Still, the legal case dragged. Nigeria's justice system is not built for speed, but Adaeze understood the long game. While her lawyers prepared for court, she focused on right beyond. By the end of that year, the NGO had opened 3 safe houses across Lagos State. It partnered with legal aid groups to offer free services to women trapped in violent homes. Adaeze refused interviews with international networks. She said, "This is a Nigerian story. Let me tell it in Nigerian soil first." And so, the people listened. Healing is not a straight road. Some nights, Adaeze still woke up sweating, reaching for a panic button but no longer existed. Once during a board meeting, a waiter who resembled one of Kolapo's ex-bodyguards made her flinch so violently she spilled hot tea across the table. Ronke sat beside her and said nothing, just placed a hand on hers. The same hand that once clapped when Kolapo humiliated her. But Ronke was changing too. She began therapy. She gave lectures at schools about family, complicity. She stood on national TV and said, "I helped him stay powerful by staying silent, and I will not do it again." When Ronke returned to their ancestral village to speak with young women, some elders hissed under their breaths, but others nodded in silence, then came to her afterward in secret. The sickness she exposed was everywhere. It just wore different clothes in different towns. It took 16 months for Kolapo's trial to begin. He entered the courtroom wearing white agbada and a smark. His new legal team, 5 SANs, filled dozens of procedural notions to delay the proceedings. But the judge, a fierce woman named Justice Amina Karanga, made it clear she was not here to be bullied. The trial lasted 5 weeks. The prosecution presented environmental reports falsified under Kolapo's direction, the dashcam footage Ifunanya provided, audio of Kolapo's threats to a former associate, CCTV showing him hand off a vial to Ronke the night of the poisoning. But the most powerful testimony came from Adaeze herself. She stood in court in plain clothes and said, "He called me his wife, but I was a possession. And when I tried to become more than that, he decided I had to die. I didn't kill him, I survived him." Silence stretched across the courtroom like a crack across glass. Ronke testified the next day. Kolapo stared straight ahead, unmoved, until Justice Koranga, in a voice like polished steel, sentenced him to 28 years in prison with no option for fine. He didn't scream, he didn't speak. He just turned to Adaeze as they cuffed him and said, "You'll regret this." She replied, "I already did, but never again." The years that followed turned Adaeze into more than a survivor. She became a movement. Her speeches were quoted in national policy meetings. Her NGO trained thousands of counselors. A local filmmaker adapted her life into a short film titled "The Fire That Walked," which was screened at the African Women's Summit. She declined political offers. "Let me fix the house before I try to build a new one," she said. Mama Nena passed away 2 years after the trial, quietly holding her daughter's hand. Her last words were, "You turned pain into purpose, and I'm proud of you." To every woman who is watching this, you are not crazy, you are not weak, and you are not done. If someone tells you to sit down, rise anyway. And if they ask you to give permission, tell them fire doesn't need permission to burn. You are not crazy, you are not weak, and you are not alone. If someone tells you to sit down, rise anyway. And if they ask you who gave you permission, tell them fire doesn't need permission to burn. If this story inspired you, please help us grow this channel by sharing the video, giving it a thumbs up, and leaving a comment below. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button so more people can discover powerful stories like this one.